Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
Ooh, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Security Squawk podcast. I'm your co-host, Bryan, here with Andre and Randy. What's up, gentlemen? How are you today?
How's it going?
Morning. Good. You guys always love talking as I'm starting the show.
That made it on there.
So on the audio, it's in the very beginning of it before the intro plays. So
we'll see.
It's interesting show we got to get through here, guys, in hopefully 30 minutes or so. Obviously, this show is our cybersecurity podcast where we help inform you about what's going on there in the world of cybersecurity, what you can start doing to defend yourself and protect yourself from these cyber criminals. But more importantly, knowledge is power, and knowing how these cyber criminals are attacking businesses is key to understanding how to start defending against them. So in 2025, guys, cyber criminals are evolving faster than ever, from government networks in Alabama facing mysterious cybersecurity events. And, I'll talk about that trend in a little bit, as I'm starting to see that becoming a pattern or a trend in these municipal cyber attacks, to phishing campaigns, guys, that are so convincing they're bypassing traditional email defenses. We've got a lot to cover. So today we're diving deep into the rising threat of callback phishing, the real costs of ransomware recovery, and what happens when AI runs your business and then gets hacked. So as always, we're ready. Buckle up. This week's headlines packed with jaw-dropping implications for businesses everywhere. Let's jump into it. Alabama's first up on the docket. Not too far from you guys, right? Kind of right in between the two of you. Alabama is, right?
Closer to Florida.
A little bit. But Andre's got to drive all the way up that big state.
Yeah, that's true.
So Alabama is investigating a cyber incident, guys. So says they're being tight-lipped, just like they were in Abilene. And that's kind of a growing trend I'm seeing here with these municipal governments not saying much, not even saying that it's ransomware that they're dealing with. But signs are pointing to a significant breach in the state's network. And this type of vague language, cybersecurity event, often signals more serious underlying issues like ransomware or unauthorized access. So why do you think the cities and local governments have, or their breach coaches have decided to be so vague about these cyber incidents these days?
Well, I think it comes around to money, comes back around to lawsuits. So you're not going to get a lawsuit by a slow drip. Okay, so lawsuit might be different. I'm just thinking out loud here. With a slow drip, a truth campaign, that's a slow drip. So I've read the announcement they put out, and it's a complete nothing burger. They're just basically saying, we have a cybersecurity event. We've done best practice by bringing in a leading cybersecurity firm. Blah, blah, blah. That's all they really said. I think it has to do with the future lawsuits. They're limiting their liability because we talk about it a lot. You have an event that's the actual truth, and you can say different things about said actual truth. Some things you say can open you up to wow, what was that?
He froze up.
Is that a Mac? One thing also missing from this article is that they didn't say that they contacted the FBI or Homeland Security or anything like that, because we know from the past, the new administration has said, you states, you guys got to figure it out yourself and don't come to Big Daddy, for money or for resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. That this has come to this. All the things you mentioned, Randy, are an exact playbook of what we saw and what happened last week in Texas. Very vague about this cyber event. That's what they call it, a cyber event, or they're not even calling it an attack or anything of the no language like that. However, you can be tight-lipped and do that slow drip type of thing, but if you don't get information out in a appropriate time frame, that could also come back to bite you. Why did you wait so long? We've seen that come back in class action lawsuits, bite companies and organizations because they waited so long to disclose what actually happened or inform people that their data was stolen when they knew months ago. So we've seen it play out all kinds of different ways. So the people of Alabama, what should they be concerned with at this point?
Well, they should be concerned that their data is going to be out there in the dark web for sale. They may get fake phone text message. I don't know what toll system they use, or or water system, or anything where they needed to give their state their information. Now the bad guys can go ahead and just act as if they're the state and say, "Hey, you never made a payment, or we need you to verify this," and then they fall for some type of scam.
Yeah, they're also going to want to do what everybody should do, Bryan, and that's get your credit reports frozen. That way, if let's say the bad guys out of this to get a hold of your date of birth and a couple of addresses, they might be able to open up a credit account in your name somewhere, or get a loan, or just cause a couple hits on your credit report, which could screw you up later. So, like everybody, they should go in and get their credit reports, freeze their credit reports.
Yeah. And what we're seeing now is we're going to be seeing the disruption. Just look at, this. I'm sure they obviously have a budget for IT. They've probably done some type of, emergency drill. And even then, they're still down and they're still trying to deal with this. So just imagine you as that small business owner, how much more, you're not prepared as compared to the state. And just imagine what would happen with your business in this scenario.
Right. Speaking of,
yes, sorry, Bob. So here we go. I'm just want to see if I want to go into this last. No, we're good. So go into this next. This one's an interesting one, guys. What I have up on the screen here is the FBI bulletin that came out 2 years ago. Warning the public and warning businesses. This is a private industry notification, right? And this could be considered part of, the overall kind of concept or idea that we want to pass along to people here, which is this whole idea of threat intelligence, right? And threat intelligence is a very effective tool in helping companies like ours, cybersecurity companies, IT companies. If you run your own IT department and you don't outsource your IT in any way, you should be subscribing to some kind of threat intelligence service in your business. And we're going to kind of go into why that's important and what that service can actually do for your business and do for your IT people who are trying to defend your networks, right? So the whole point of all of this revolves around something we picked up in our threat intelligence. Is we're doing research for the show. We're going through different feeds that we have of information, trying to put together stories to bring to you so we can educate you on what's happening out there in the world as it comes to cyber attacks, cybersecurity, and all that. One of those things that I look at is our threat intelligence feed to see kind of who's doing what out there. Now, this week happened to be a week where there really wasn't a ton of ransomware attacks in the news. So it's nice to be able to go into reports like this and see what is going on out there. And then we can paint a picture of, hey, there's this particular ransomware group. You're not going to read this anywhere. You're not going to find a story on the internet that says what I'm about to say. But this is our own kind of news story that we're creating here on the show, and that's simply that there's a ransomware group out there called what are they called, guys? I forget off the top of my head.
Silent Ransom Group.
What is it?
Silent Ransom
Group, right? So Silent Ransom Group is a ransomware group that has just about a few days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, released on their dark web leak site, I think it was like 67 or something like that, companies that they breached. And it looked like it was lawyers and accountants. And I was going through it with Andre and Randy before the show, and I'm sitting here going, God, there's a lot of little lawyers and accountants. And then I'm looking, I'm like, who hit these guys? And it was this group, Silent Ransom Group. And they've been around for a bit. But it's interesting that in the last month that they just released 72 victims. I mean, that's a pretty high number for a ransomware group to release at one time. But this did happen. It's on the dark web. These 72 companies have kind of been outed by this group. But this group has been on the radar of the FBI and cyber security researchers for well over 2 years. They also operate under Luna Moth. I think that's the other name, right, Randy?
Yeah, Luna Moth.
And in this particular bulletin, the FBI doesn't necessarily call out this particular group, but if you do your research, you're going to find that all signs point to this group was the reason that this was written, right? This whole playbook of how your business is going to be attacked by this group is basically what this is, right? And how to avoid getting exposed by them. Doing things like, requiring all accounts to have strong passwords, right? Long passwords. Don't store them. Use salts on your password. Avoid reusing passwords. Implement multiple failed login attempts and account lockouts. Like all basic stuff we talk about is like cybersecurity 101, right? Multi-factor authentication. Make sure you know where your security servers are and stuff like that, and make sure you know what's going on with them and that they're up to date and and they're well maintained and managed. Auditing your user accounts, making sure that you know who's logging in on what accounts and where they're going and what they're doing and how many times they're doing it, and somebody's not using one of your employees' accounts to move around your network and do bad things. Implement time-based access for sensitive accounts and set at the admin and higher level. Like there's all these different things that the FBI says you can go through, and if you do these things, you're going to make it really hard for a group like this to deploy ransomware on your network. But unfortunately, 72 companies did not do this, and they fell victim. And now we have a ransomware group using things like these callback phishing scams, right? Can one of you guys go into like what's so different or special about callback phishing scams over typical phishing email scams? Can you shed some insight into that, please?
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple and just like pretty smart, because sometimes you think that, okay, I have all of these firewalls and, tools to protect from bad guys coming in. And what they basically do is they send out a email. It looks legit. It could be saying your product is expiring. They keep it under $1,000 because, of course, if you get an invoice for $20,000, you're probably going to be like, well, we don't pay anything one time, $20,000 a year. So they keep it under a certain amount. They use, ChatGPT to make sure the English and everything is spelled right. And it leads you to questions like, hey, we're about to charge your credit card, $642.39 for your renewal. you're not sure what it is, maybe it's legit, you want to make sure it's coded properly in QuickBooks, and it encourages you to call the number if you have any questions. So now when you call the number, they have a whole call center. They're expecting your call. They know the invoice number, and they are like, okay, hey, okay, you don't need this anymore. Okay, no problem. I just need to go on your computer to uninstall it, or I need to check something. And they use tools that are legit, Zoho or TeamViewer. So basically, they're bypassing what your antivirus may just say, yeah, this is a legit US company tool that's used to remote in, come right in. And from there, they don't deploy the bad guys don't deploy ransomware. What they're trying to now do is try to connect to your files and see if they can now essentially copy and paste the files from your system to their systems. And then later on, they come to you and say, hey, we got you. We have your information, and now you need to pay.
Yeah, so this is like a very old scam, actually, Bryan. If y'all are familiar with the Scammer Payback podcast and YouTube channel, man, they've been looking at scams like this for years, and it's called Scammer Payback because they kind of reverse engineer and they do the payback on them. But short story long, this has been around for a long time, but it's been done by 2-bit criminals that, don't have the best of techniques. And now you take a group like this, where you've got people that speak really good English, they're aware of the culture and all that kind of stuff. It just takes it to a whole nother level. And I've got a theory behind it, Bryan. I think that these ransomware groups are having a harder and harder time getting into some of the bigger companies that are finally waking up to cybersecurity. And just like we saw over on the dark web, they can do this. Yeah, it's a little more labor intensive, but they can do this and get into 70 companies over the course of, I don't know how long it's been, but on their new dark website, getting into that many companies, they're just following the money. And this is a way to do it. And it bypasses everything. Mm-hmm. Unless you have zero trust process control on your computer, it bypasses everything. Which is why we encourage people to have zero trust process control on their computers.
So obviously this is a social engineering technique, right? So in order to combat social engineering techniques, we need to train our people, right? Yep. So what are some ways businesses in your mind could train staff around this? Like, what should businesses tell their staff to be mindful of or cautious of, so they don't become a victim of one of these kinds of threats or scams?
Don't let anybody you don't know on your computer. That's your first gigantic red flag. When they say, hey, let me remote in, say, nah, let me get my IT company involved, or my IT department, or my cyber.
Yeah, but let's be realistic, right? So we hear these so many times. We hear this so many times, right? And we hear when we do hear businesses where an employee got tricked, right? Or your mom or your grandmom got tricked, and they're like, did you let them onto your computer? Yeah, I did. And it's like, why? That's the first thing. Like, why would you do that, right? I would say 90% or more of the people that let these people on their computer don't really intend to let some scumbag on their computer. Yeah. They're somehow in the moment tricked into thinking that this person is there to help them or assist them in some way, that they're from the bank, they're from your IT department, and your guard is completely down because you think that this person is legit and from where they think they are, right? So, your company, in my mind, your company needs to have a process that everybody's familiar with as to how you say get IT support, or how you transfer money or move money when it comes to banking things, right? You don't let the banker remote in, like Randy, right? I'm not wrong here when I say this. You can back me up because you watch these scamming YouTubes. They remote in and they literally change the numbers on the bank account. Like, don't let people into your computer to get access to your bank account. Your bank doesn't need to go through your computer to access your account information. They can access it themselves. So it sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, there was a very successful Microsoft scam using Teams that did the same thing. They acted like they were IT support, and they called the people up and they were like, hey, we know you're getting a bunch of spam email, because the hackers were sending the spam email, but they pretended like they were IT support, and the victims fell for it because they were like, yeah, I am getting a bunch of spam. Thanks for calling me. Like, yeah, help me out. And they think they're getting support from their company's IT, when really it's the hackers on the other end of the line who are getting access to the computer. And that's how these things, and these guys are, they sit around all day and they hatch these things up. What can we do to trick these people? Right. So, the moral of the story here is that's why threat intelligence feeds are important, because unlike security awareness training programs and tools that you may purchase, you're not going to get real-time, kind of information about the techniques and tactics that these organizations are using to attack your people. Some of the information in those training programs, guys, can be 6 to 12 months old, right? Or more. Right. And this stuff, you need to be given almost like monthly updates on, like, to your staff as to, like, here's what we're seeing happening to companies like ours in our industry. Any thoughts on that? Disagree, agree, or is that?
Yeah. I would say it two things. It goes back to the culture, and like how you're saying, like, you don't just, it's not a send a video once every 6 months and have them sign off that they watched a cheesy, cybersecurity training video. So I always tell my clients that when you have, if you need me to send it to you or whatever, but when you have your monthly meetings with your department staff and 10 people in a room, go online and do a cybersecurity Google and just see what an article is and just talk about it. Get people always thinking about it. But at the same time, like it's been mentioned, you still can't stop that human from just like believing something. And because of that, you basically kind of just need to keep that computer, that endpoint in the prison, in the jail, and just don't allow anything. Going back to what Randy's saying, is zero trust.
Yeah. Some of these things, we're not diving into it today, right? Because we could spend all day on talking like something like this. But some of these things require multiple layers, and if you have these multiple layers, even your employee getting tricked isn't going to break the bank, isn't going to get you ransomware. It's usually because you don't have these layers in place, and then the employee gets tricked, and then you're kind of left, hope for the best type of thing. All right, guys, business email compromise still dominates despite some claims that there's a dip in claims from insurance companies. That's debatable. It depends how you look at the data, how you spin it, and where you get your data from, in my opinion. I do not believe that anything is down when it comes to cybersecurity or claims. If claims are down, it's because people are deciding not to use their cyber insurance.
Right.
But there is a 7% decrease in claim frequency, 115,000 average loss, which I guess is kind of down too, and 60% of claims due to business email compromise and fraudulent funds transfer. So those are global highlights, but there is a 23% increase in business email compromise claims, $35,000 increase in the average loss amount, and a 29% increase in business email compromise events that resulted in fraudulent funds transfer. So with awareness being so high, guys, and multi-factor supposedly on, why is BEC still so successful?
Well, I mean, first off, there's literally no good news whatsoever in this article. With almost a third of all BEC events, that's business email compromise, are resulting in money getting sent to the bad guys. And the average cost of one of these is $35K. That's the average cost. And to answer your question, I mean, it's still happening because, one, most people don't have their cloud stuff secured. They think, oh, I'm in the cloud, I'm safe. And and I know it's 2025. Nobody should still be thinking like that. But most business owners think like that. They were sold that the cloud is a efficient, safe way to do everything, and like what, 80% of all businesses have migrated to the cloud. But we run across all the dang time. We run across clients that don't have their cloud properly secured. And it's real easy then, Bryan. All they got to do, the bad guys just get a username and a password off the dark web, and then they just try it everywhere. And boom, they get into one of these cloud accounts. It's not secured, and boom, they get right in, and then they start doing their thing.
Yeah, and I think
that answers your question.
Yeah, and it's also, I'd say even more dangerous, because how many of these employees are emailing sensitive information? They're putting all of these files in there, PII information, and it doesn't take long for the bad guy to download all those emails, and on his own spare time, he can just go through them and start creating fake domain names and taking those conversations that's in the emails to start changing things. So I would say it's a longer play, because let's just say that person's been working in the company for 5 years, right? And now you can go one at a time and just start tricking all of these other vendors that they're dealing with. Like, hey, you normally pay us $500 every 2 weeks. Here's the new account number. There's so much different plays you can do on this.
Yeah.
And one more thing, and business email compromises are usually swept under the rug. It's not, if one person's email goes down, but then the servers and everything else is still up, typically they just change the passwords, update 2FA and move on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's why there's a decrease in quote unquote, getting the insurance claim. And then also, like, the scary thing here, Bryan, is this average cost, because I know we've dealt with at least 5 over the last year that they all turned into nothing burgers, because they were caught right away, nipped in the bud, researched, no data went out, no invoices, no blah, blah, blah. Okay, so those 5 are now that cost $0 are now thrown into this average of $35K. Anyway, that's astounding to me, man.
Yeah, it happens a lot. I mean, it's the bigger threat than ransomware for businesses. The numbers aren't as high when they get attacked, but the frequency is just through the roof. If people understood how often companies got scammed through business email compromise, and it can happen a lot of different ways, guys. I mean, like, if they don't steal money directly from your business, they can use your company's email, your employees, email that they have commandeered, to then scam anybody that you're connected to and have done business with and have emailed in the past. So partners, vendors, other clients, they start getting these weird emails from this employee. And, the trust level when you get an email from somebody that you're familiar with, and you do the normal thing that you're trained to do. You look at the to address, yep, that's their email, right? And then it's like something like, hey, click here. And if you don't teach these people about these types of scams, your employees, they're liable to fall for them and click on these links and not call the person and say, hey, did you send me this email? Because it looks kind of suspicious, right? You usually don't send me a link like this, or a Dropbox link like this, or something weird, something's off, right? But a lot of that's getting harder, as Andre pointed out, with AI. It's getting harder to spot this stuff and catch it. So that's why these things are becoming more successful, because the mistakes are less and things look more believable, right? So tough game out there right now for businesses. These hackers are pretty good at what they do. So, all right, guys, let's jump into it, because this is kind of very right along with what we're talking about with this report out of Cisco, where it says 96% of organizations aren't ready for an AI-driven cyber threat. It doesn't sound like they're ready for any kind of cyber threat, in my opinion. But, hey, AI is running companies now, but only 4% are truly ready to defend against AI power threats, guys. Cisco's new study paints a sobering picture of just how unprepared most organizations are for the cyber arms race. So what did you guys pick up in this article that caught your eye? Because there's a ton in here.
Well, before I even got to the article, my thought was, okay, here's where we're going to be in the next 2 years, maybe 5 years, 2 months, but somewhere soon we're going to be, oh my gosh, my AI that runs my entire company has been hacked and now it's holding us ransom or whatever. That's where we're headed. So that was my first thought before I even got into the article, man.
Mine's is 60% of IT teams don't know how their employees are using AI or public AI.
Right.
So they're finding a cool, shiny tool. It's only $20. I'm not even going to put it on the company card. I'm going to pay for it myself. And now you've basically integrated your, like I saw one called Read AI. Maybe we can talk about that in the next show. But Read AI, where basically it's reading your emails, your SharePoint, your Teams, like all of this. And it's a really nice. I mean, the video was nice, but you just gave this third party access to your entire company system.
To everything.
I am going to. I gotta call BS here.
On what? Read AI?
I gotta call BS on these stats.
Okay.
Because the key finding, one of the key findings was AI's growing role in cybersecurity. It says 89% of organizations use AI for threat analysis. No way. Yeah. No way is that almost 90%. These companies aren't even doing threat analysis. And I'll tell everybody what I think this is. 85% are doing detection. I don't even think 85% of companies have anything close to what's needed for detection in place.
Right.
Like, I'm going to say that the market, the number of businesses that are buying services that include a detection piece, that an actual human being is actually looking at this stuff, and it's not just your EDR, right, is under 20%.
It's got to be.
And then on top of that, 70% use it for response. So 70% of companies out there have matured their business so damn good that they can use AI to respond to incidents. No effing way. This is the problem. This is CISOs and IT directors buying these freaking tools that these companies market and say, oh, we put AI in our EDR and now it's doing all this great stuff for you. And then they believe that they have some kind of special AI cybersecurity tool that is doing, guys, absolutely nothing, correct?
Yeah.
It might be analyzing what's going through their EDR a little bit quicker and bringing alerts to the surface. I don't know. But at the end of the day, let's not kid ourselves. Like, do you guys agree with me that that's where why those numbers are so high? Because people who are buying tools are being basically sold a bad bill of goods, or they're being told that the tool is. They think in their mind, they hear AI and then they think this tool is like this great thing, and it's really like
So basically, it's a self-attestation or whatever they call it. I can't say that word right, but basically they've said we're using AI for cyber threats, which might be the tool that they bought, which has AI in the title, or it might be that they're asking ChatGPT some questions, but a reality look at it, most likely they're not really using AI to solve cybersecurity.
No, I'm thinking it's a vendor tool that said we use or integrated AI in some way. Yeah. I mean, look, dude, there's been EDR and XDR and MDR companies out there who've been saying that they use AI. They've been using AI in their tools for over 5 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, Barracuda. I remember when they used to advertise that they had AI in their EDR products, right? It's a joke. That kind of stuff is not like the power of AI. It just helps the tool maybe work a little bit more efficiently, but it's not AI in terms of like helping you defend against hacks or helping. It's not like that. And unfortunately, we have 90% of the business world, whoever took this survey, running around thinking that they got like top level cyber security, and they are barely scratching the surface. That's the scary part.
It sounds good when you're putting it.
It goes back to what I said in the last segment, where the layers of defense, though, right? This is why companies get hacked, because they think this is the silver bullet.
Yeah.
Like 90% of organizations thinking they use AI for threat analysis is just mind-boggling to me. That they think that that's what's actually going on in their world. So, I don't know. Any more thoughts on this? Because the next one's kind of right along with that, right? Next article.
Next
AI.
one. Oh, yeah.
So we got this. You brought this one to the table, Andre, so I'm going to let you kind of run point on this after I introduce it. But Spot On are pushing forward with AI-powered tools, but the concerns are growing about the rise of autonomous ransomware powered by AI. We're entering an era where both defense and offense are being automated. Are we ready? And that's what I'm saying. Like, we're just developing these tools. So there's no way that there's 90% of the companies out there using these tools. It's just a different level, I think, that we're talking. Like so like, I don't want anyone that thinks that they have an AI tool, it's like in their cybersecurity stack, unless you bought something new in the last 6 months, more than likely it's not what you think it is. So what's going on here, Andre?
None. I don't think this one was me.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't get this one. I'm sorry.
I mean,
what's that? It's basically saying as artificial intelligence services become more commonplace, their impact on the payment industry is both good and bad is becoming clear. So now they're saying that they're able to use AI to essentially do credit card fraud.
Yeah, and this article is just, I mean, it's basically, this might be AI generated, I don't know, but it basically talks about Spot On, which has been around for at least 10 years,
right?
And several different iterations, has now come out with a program to help you choose a restaurant to go eat at. And then the second part of the article talks about AI, agentic AI, which basically an agent runs on a computer, can act as a human. We're starting to see that being used more and more in ransomware attacks. So
what's the concern with companies if they want to use AI? And like, should a company have a concern with implementing AI and maybe getting ransomware?
So the thing is, if you're not careful, like we talked for 15 years about Google knows everything about me. And, Google had their own AI. They've had their own AI for quite a while, and they've had neural networks. They were really way ahead of the game on that. We're over here worrying about all the information that Google has. And now we bring in this current iteration of AI, which basically takes all knowledge, remembers it, and then makes a relational database out of it, basically. The concern is, Bryan, that if you're not using the right kind of AI, they're taking your information and they're adding it to this list of all the knowledge that they know in the whole wide world. And they try to be anonymous about it, but a bad guy could ask the right questions the right way and potentially pull out your information. And that is the concern here, is that you need to make sure that you're using an AI. This is for our next show, practically, man. You need to make sure that you're using an AI that keeps your company data inside its own tenant, basically, or it's not being shared with the rest of AI.
I mean, look at what maybe semi-related to this article, but remember with power schools and how all of basically the school systems is using this third-party company to store all of his data, and then this third-party company gets hacked. So just going back to, that example I was giving with Read AI, where people are just trusting, willy-nilly, not doing whatever, questions they need to ask, or, what do they do with their information. And then what we're going to start talking about on this show is these type of companies now getting hacked, and now their data breaches, and everything that it's read is now out there. And you're on mute, Bryan.
And how could that be used in a ransomware attack? So I could have just a theory. So bad guy could have, using AI, start coming up with the correct questions, potentially to pull your data out of this AI's whole thing. Like I said, they try to anonymize it. Still the potential there.
Yes, sir. All right. So we'll keep this whole AI thing is going to evolve into an interesting place when it comes to ransomware. There's serious concerns out there by some security researchers that AI is going to be able to kind of create its own ransomware and deploy itself at some point in the future. So we don't know, but we'll certainly keep you updated. So let's just go into a quick follow-up segment here, guys. M&S and Co-op, weeks after the cyber attack here. Details remain sparse following the cyber attacks on these UK retailers, M&S and Co-op. It's another example of long-tail investigations and major breaches. So what do we know so far? I guess let's take it there in your eyes, and then why are these public updates taking so long especially for these retail breaches?
So before we answer that question, did you just make up a new term? Long tail breaches?
Yes.
Like you had like long tail COVID, where isn't that what they called it? Where you had it for a long time. So now we got long tail breaches so
long tail investigations, I said.
Yes. Well, but yeah, that go on and on and on and on. Now, re-ask your question. Sorry.
Yeah, I just said, why does it take so long for these organizations to update the public on whether data has been stolen?
A, they don't know, and B, they're trying to figure. It's like kind of like trying to figure out.
Right. And my point is, the cyber experts, right? If you don't know at this point, what is that? Man, I kind of, right? It's to me, right? Like where we sit, when you say something like that to me, that is the same thing as me seeing somebody who's shredded and fit walking through the door and somebody who's fat and completely out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can look at that and go, well, that person does the right thing and that person doesn't.
Right.
And that's what I'm doing here with these articles. And I go, well, that person, that company, this industry does it right. This industry doesn't do it right. And this industry, retail, typically haven't been a target over the years, but cyber criminals have learned they don't do a whole lot and they're super low hanging fruit. So let's go get them.
No pun intended.
Thoughts there? Any? Good.
Yeah, I do. One thing that we are seeing, and the reason why this M&S is a little more public, is because this is the major supermarket in this country, and if an attorney's office got hacked internally, it's going to be chaos. They can't process their files and upload things to dockets and so forth like that. But here we're seeing it real time of how the chaos looks, because they can't operate their barcode scanners. They can't put new juices and milk on the stands and so forth like that. So it's an interesting perspective of how we're actually seeing it. Very similar to when the oil, remember the thing with the oil, the pipeline, and then there was no gas. Like we're actually seeing in public how it looks of the chaos that how the companies can't operate.
All right, guys. Good show. 45 minutes in. We went a little bit over than we had planned, but we touched on everything from this callback phishing to AI-driven cyber warfare that we're warning people about. If there's one takeaway for me, it's old threats are always evolving and the new ones are going to be forever here to stay, right? They're always going to be inventing new ways to hack companies. And the old ones that are here are always going to be here until you do something about it as a business. So remember, defending your business isn't just about the tools. It's about awareness, process, preparation. Let's give our buddy Luke a shout out from the YouTubes. We had a good thought here. Maybe we could talk about it real quick before we wrap up the show. Companies should do group sessions where they ask employees, how would you hack us with the information you have about our clients, customers? That would really get them thinking. That's a great exercise for like a tabletop, Luke. And not only should you ask your employees, but you should also ask third parties, your partners, or maybe an outside penetration testing company, and don't give them any information. Sometimes you can hire companies to do that, right? Just you try to hack us based on the information you can get out of the internet and go from there, right? That is a thing. So thanks again, Randy, Andre, for your insights. If you enjoyed the show, folks, remember to like, share, subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave us a review on the podcast. If you're consuming us on the audio portion, we appreciate the feedback. Helps people find us and discover more about cybersecurity and how to protect themselves. So until next time, stay safe, stay alert, and as always, stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.